You don't have to wait until you save up for it. You can just put almost anything now on a monthly payment. They don't realize the consequence of these things because usually those consequences aren't till much later.
If we took the time to think about half the stuff we're about to purchase like that, I feel like we wouldn't end up purchasing it anyway.
It's crazy what you can do with your income when you don't have to pay for a car payment. You've paid off your student loans. You don't have any credit card debt.
We talk about this all the time. People that wake up when they're 40 and they're just like, I make decent money, but I have nothing to show for it.
Welcome back to the show. Lauren and I are back for our weekly episode where we talk all things money. Lauren, today is an interesting one because we're talking about the money lies that people tell themselves and how those can actually be holding you back. And, I think for most people, it can feel kind of harmless in the moment or even comforting, especially if you're saying something like, oh, I can afford that, or I deserve to make this purchase for myself. But I honestly think it's little moments like these, especially when you compound them over thousands of decisions, like that can be the reason why people feel like they can't make progress with their money, or I think the worst one is they're stressed anytime the topic of money comes up.
Oh yeah, for sure. But we always want to justify, why we're doing something.
Yeah.
So we flip it into being like a good situation so that then when we make that decision to buy something we really can't afford, it suddenly is a good decision and we feel entitled that we should be able to do that. So I see why it happens, but yeah, I think it's an us problem and more so about our mindset around things.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, I think it's just about justifying it. Like people are very good at saying like, oh, there's something I want, so how can I make that okay in my head, instead of finding and reinforcing the reasons why, no, I should turn away from that,
Yeah. Nick, we just talked about I fostered a dog and now I'm keeping it. And it's such a justifiable situation because he's such a good dog. So why not keep it, So yeah, we talk ourselves into this a lot, but let's jump into these. So the first one, and we already sort of touched on it, is I can afford it. So where do you see this typically? Usually I can afford the monthly payment. So I can get this new car, I can get this new product that'll allow me to pay for it monthly. I think usually these things are more of wants. So it's not something we necessarily need. It's more so of oh, I can usually afford the monthly payment. So I'm going to go ahead and purchase this item. So that's a big one that I think a lot of people could say, I can afford it.
100%. And I think that hits it on the nail on the head. Like anytime I hear people say, if I can afford it, it's rarely how much money do I have in my bank account and can I pay for that item in full? It's no, you see the monthly price, especially things like Klarna or buy now, pay late, all those buy now, pay later things. It's it'll always show you oh, I want to buy this $50 sweater, and it's I can just make it in 5 easy installments of 10, it's just little things like that. It's getting crazy, but yeah, I think it's an easy way, like we said, an easy way for people to justify the things that they want because they see it and they're okay, how can I make this easy on myself? It's oh, well, I can just afford those monthly payments. And that's usually what people mean when they say that they can afford it. But I think it's how you quickly spiral into having more, being stuck in that payment life cycle where you can afford all of your monthly payments, but you have so many of them that now you don't have any flexibility to do anything else, especially if you wanted to pay those off early, right?
Yeah. And then you're stuck if
Yeah.
your work situation changes or your life situation changes. You don't want to work that job anymore and you have to continue to do it because you have all of these payments. So yeah. It's a slippery slope. Are there things that I think you can do this with? Certainly. But I think the problem is it's available on, like you said, a sweater these days. So we can, oh yeah, I can afford $10 a month. But before we know it, we have so many different things put on buy now, pay laters that it's just out of control. And I think it just, I don't even know how I want to word this, but I think for people, there's no sense of patience, saving up for things. It's fitting with the times. I'm going to buy this right now because I can, and I have access to do so. It's not let me actually save for this and, take some time to think about it as well, and then pay for it all up, at once. It's we live in a fast paced society where we can have things here and now. And that's literally what this all means. But yeah, I think it's creating monsters out of people because we just don't have to have patience or save for things. Every single thing, even DoorDash these days, you can pay for food in installments like this.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, it really is. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think the problem is it's so readily available. Like you said, like you don't have to wait till you save up for it. You can just put almost anything now on a monthly payment. And usually the monthly payment for like for most things is going to be something reasonable. I'll, you know, I'll be honest. Sometimes I'll look at something that's like, especially renovating the house. I'm like, man, I could have just paid for this. And like, you know, like a new couch, for example, like it's like $70 a month over 72 payments or something. And I'm like, $70 a month for a couch is not bad, right?
Yeah.
You start to think about it in your head like, wow, but it just, you fall for that trap. And I think where people get stuck is they don't realize the consequence of these things, because usually those consequences aren't till much later, right? Like you start to pile up those monthly payments and then something in life goes wrong, right? Like you usually will make these bad decisions when things are okay, and then something goes wrong, whether, you know, car breaks down, God forbid, lose your job, someone gets hurt, whatever it is, right? And now your circumstances change, like you said, and then it's like the weight of all those monthly payments that are really weighing down on you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, you know, because it's such like an impulse sort of purchase,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, this is only $10 a month. Oh, great, I can afford
Yeah.
it. It's like if we took the time to like think about half the stuff we're about to purchase like that, I feel like we wouldn't
Yeah.
end up purchasing it anyway. So it creates this like impulse buying option, and I think it's really harmful to so many people. Like I said, I think there's times that it could make sense, you know, if you really
Yeah.
did need furniture on something like that, you know, sure, but you can't be doing it for everything or you're literally going to spiral deeply out of control.
Yeah, it's crazy when like I catch myself doing this a lot too, where it's like I'll go to order something from Amazon, and if I can get the thing like the next day, I'm gonna buy it. But if it says like if it's not being shipped by Amazon Prime, it's like another, you know, seller, and it's like, oh, you got to wait 2 weeks to get it. I'm like, you know, like
Right.
I don't want to wait 2 weeks. That's ridiculous, and then I end up not buying it. But like
Yep.
the truth is, I probably just didn't need it to begin with. You know, if I could go without getting it, like, you know what I mean? Like it just,
Yep.
I find myself falling for that a lot of the times too.
100%.
All right, let's move into the next one. So the second lie that I think people tell themselves all the time is, I'll start saving and investing when I'm older. And, you know, I feel like I tend to hear this from people who are like fresh out of college. They got their first job. They're finally like feeling like an adult now. They're starting to make money, and the possibility of things that you can do just like opens up, right? Like you're no longer under like I don't know if pressure is the right word, but like the constraints of being in school and having that taking up your whole time, or even if you're someone like fresh out of high school and you're going into working, you know, like you're out of like you've lifted all these constraints and now you have like an actual income. And saving and investing is such a, you know, I'll be honest, it's such a boring thing to most people
Yeah.
that like putting it off till later is what most people tend to do. And I think it's the funny part is people think like, oh, I'm gonna start practicing this good habit later, even though right now I'm continuing to reinforce like the opposite habit, like something negative, which is telling myself it's okay not to spend and save, or telling myself it's okay to use up my entire income, sometimes even more than that.
Yeah. And I think also, you know, we talked about this before too, like retirement is so far off in the distance, especially when you
Yeah,
just come out of college. Like that is the furthest thing than what you're thinking about. So the
yeah,
money that you're now making from your fresh new job, it's so much more enticing to like do other things with that, right?
hmm,
And you're like, I have like a lot of, especially a lot of like young college kids that are coming out and getting their first jobs. They're like, I have time. I can do this in my, mid 20s, late or early
yeah.
30s, things like that. And then they get there and they're like, oh, oh shoot, I haven't started this yet. You know, I need to do this. But yeah, I think it's just like investing is something like you're not seeing an immediate return on. So you just like
Yeah,
obviously like want to push that into the future.
100%. And every time like I hear that, I always love to look up this it's by the Money Guys, who I think have a lot of great resources, but it's their wealth multiplier. And so they have this chart that shows that if you start investing at 25 years old and you invest $184 a month, you'll hit $1 million in wealth by the age of 65. But if you wait just 5 years, now you start at 30, you have to almost double that monthly
Mhm.
investment to hit the $1 million in that same time frame. Like it's crazy that 5 years can double the burden of what you need to invest to hit like what I think most people feel is like a solid number, which is $1 million in their investment account. It's just, it's wild because I don't think people recognize, especially when you're in your 20s, like how harmful it can be to delay this thing, right? Like just 5 years doubles the amount that you need. And if you know, start to pick this up as a habit later on in life, like you're going to hopefully get to the point where you look at these monthly investments as a bill and not like an option anymore. Like that's exactly how my wife and I treat it, right? Like every time we want to every month we go to max out our Roth IRA, it's like, this is just another bill that has to get paid. But the longer you wait, the higher that monthly bill is going to be for life.
Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking of the same thing that you were talking about there, like the numbers. Think about
Mm-hmm.
it, like you said, like, 25 and 30. Like, imagine you are them 35 and 40, because we also hear
Yeah.
people who are 40 that are like, can I make this happen? And it's like, you can, but you have to use a lot more of your income to make that
Yeah.
happen, rather than just starting early, small, and keeping that time frame real big. It's like now you're on a
Yeah.
a short leash here as far as like your timing goes. So yeah, it's super interesting. I feel like every young adult needs to take a class on this. Like, I think that should be part of like your exit. Colleges wouldn't do that, but like
Yeah.
it should be like a
Yeah.
part
Right.
of like the exit like interview or something. Like, hey, here's what your investments will look like if you start now with smaller amounts. If you wait until later, this is what they'll look like. Because I think a lot of people would prioritize it rather than increasing their lifestyle or whatever you do after you graduate college.
The crazy thing about looking at this chart is if like, I'm obviously, if your parents did this for you, if they
Yeah.
started investing when you were first born, it would only take $13 a month from, first born
Yeah.
to 65, $13 a month, which is just a crazy,
Wow.
crazy to think about, right? Like the amount of, and it's those added, well, in this case, what is that? 25 years, right? It's those 25 years that you have so much more time to compound. Yeah, it's crazy that so many people will put this off. And then again, they make it such a burden later on. And then people will end up falling into that trap of it's just so far away that like, I might as well as not try to reach it anymore.
Yeah. And it's such a bad mindset to have, because
Yeah.
we've done the math on it. Even if you start at 40, 45, like, yeah, you're looking at smaller amounts. You're not going to be on yachts
Hmm.
or anything, but you can still make a big difference compared to the zero that you're going to have if you don't try. So,
Yeah.
let's move on to the next one. Tale as old as time, Nick. Debt is normal.
Yeah.
This is something from I don't even know like what kind of social economics, status I grew up in, but I would definitely, I don't think I was considered middle class growing up, like
Hmm.
lower middle class maybe, because I had not a nice house, but like a roof over my head and such. But this was something, debt is normal is something it was ingrained in me,
Yeah.
from a very young age. Like, you will have a car payment, you will have student loans, not credit cards, because like I said, my mom didn't make that much, but like we did not have credit card debt. We just didn't buy
Yeah.
things that we could not afford. But car payments, student loans, things like that, that was part of the all American dream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just what it was. So,
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. My wife and I were just having a conversation about this the other day. Like we wouldn't be able to like pay for all the things, have our home, like do the things that we max out our Roth IRA if we had all these other forms of debt. And it's crazy what you can do with your income when you don't have to pay for a car payment. You've paid off your student loans. You don't have any credit card debt. You don't take on any other monthly bills. Like I was saying, like we easily could have got a couch for $70 a month or something. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just wait until we really are ready to buy a big, a nice couch that's going to last us 5+ years or whatever. And then we can buy the one that we want, we'll save up for it. It's wild that people tend to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they tend to replace the word common with normal. Like, oh, it's so common in our
yeah.
society to have debt that now people assume that that's just normal, and it's not normal, right? Like it literally limits so much of your future potential and especially what you can do with your income.
Yeah, and I feel like, when I was going through my debt-free journey, and even now I'm sort of looked at it more of like a weird person, because I don't do things like do a monthly payment for something. I'm just going to save up for it, and that's just what I'm going to pay for. Or like my debt-free journey of 3 years, people just can't wrap their head around that I would want to do that. Like, why do you want to spend 3 years of sacrificing to get to this place where you don't have debt? And I'm like, because the argument is, you only live once, you could die tomorrow. You know what I mean? But my argument is like, okay, I'm well past that journey now, and I'm seeing the fruits of that labor. Like, now I have money that I can do whatever I want with. I'm taking my mom to Florida in a few days. You know what I mean? So these are things that I value. And it's like, when debt is normal, I feel like you don't get to do like, fun stuff, because your monthly payments are just drowning you. You know what I mean? So when you get away from that, like, life opens up. But too many people can't see past like YOLO and you're gonna die someday. You know what I mean?
Oh, I hate hearing that one too. I'm like, okay, but chances are you're not, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna be one of the people who are
Yeah.
either complaining that life was unfair or that like, what am I gonna do in retirement? It's like, well, you had 20 plus years into adulthood to figure this out,
Yeah.
and you decided to say that like, oh well, anything could happen, so I'm gonna just spend my money however I want, and like it's. I feel like people tend to misunderstand like when I say it, it's like, oh, you just like how are you going to put that money towards something that you're not going to have access to for so long? And it's like, look, like you do the things that you need to do now. So that way, depending on what your situation is, maybe in a few years you can live like, I'm going to spend on whatever I wanted to. Right. Like that's exactly the situation you're describing for yourself is like, hey, spent 3 years paying off this debt. It wasn't fun, right? It sucked for those 3 years.
Yeah.
But on the other side of those 3 years is a lifetime of being able to do whatever I want because I don't have the monthly payments that are holding me back anymore.
Yeah. And I think we just, I mean, during those 3 years, like, sure, I wasn't like buying clothes or doing anything crazy, but like, I still went to my job every day. I still had friends. Like, I
Yeah.
still got
Right.
to see my family and like, my husband, boyfriend at the time. Like, I still lived a good life.
Hmm.
Honestly, a better life than I probably did growing up. You know what I mean? Because I didn't do
Yeah.
crazy things. I wasn't able to go on crazy trips or anything growing up either. But yeah, I don't know. I think too many people just cannot move past like the sacrifices or quote unquote sacrifices that you have to make to get to that point, and it's just not worth it for them. But whew, now that I'm on the other side, I
Yeah.
tell you it's worth it.
Yeah. And I think the problem is like people get to that point where they have so much debt. For a lot of people, at least, it's because they've built up their lifestyle, right? Their lifestyle is now also dependent on them being able to put stuff on a credit card. And so changing what going through that sacrifice tends to be in what people see as their quality of life. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, now I can not hang out with friends anymore because they're so used to hanging out with friends means we're going to go spend a couple $100s to go out to dinner or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or I'm going to go spend a couple $100s to go do all these activities when like you can still hang out with your friends. You just have to adjust how that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Like you can still go out and do fun things. It just has to look a little different. And I do like that you said like quote unquote sacrifice because like at the end of the day, these are all things that like you don't need. They're just things that you really, really want. And that's where people find such a hard time making progress is getting rid of those things that they really, really want for something that's going to be so much better on the other side.
Yeah, I think about people living in like third world countries, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I have a really good life. I don't care if I didn't
Yeah.
buy clothes. I didn't buy clothes for 3 years. Oh, for me, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah.
100%. Why don't we move on to the next one then? So this one is I'll save when I make more. And it's kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier about, I'll invest when I'm older, but this is one
Mhm.
that I see people they kind of mix it up with two things. It's either I'll save when I make more or I don't make enough money to start investing yet.
Yep.
And those two things tend to go hand in hand and it's wild because people tend to think that like investing is something that wealthy people do, but it's something that you do to become wealthy, right? Like it's something that you have to do to become wealthy. You literally just cannot save your way to building wealth, but you can start investing your way to build wealth over a long period of time, right? And I think the fallacy is people think that it requires a lot of money. And look, yeah, if you have a large income and you can put a significant portion of that into savings and investing, like the ball is going to roll a lot faster. But the sooner you start, especially if you have only a limited income to work off of, like the sooner you start, the quicker that's going to start to compound, right? Like usually for most people, it's like getting past that first 10,000 is a huge hurdle. And then they start to see big progress. And then 100,000 is the next hurdle. And then they start to see, $10,000 swings in a good or bad day in the market. It's thinking that you need a huge income when really you just need to get started now.
Oh, 100%. And I think, a lot of, like you just mentioned, like a lot of people are just like, I'll wait until I make more later on and then I'll be good. But as you continue to make more, you increase your lifestyle and then you don't ever really prioritize investing. I think if you could just, even if you're for your little income, which probably make coming out of college, I know I did, you could probably even take like a tiny bit of that and start the habit of investing.
Yeah.
And I think that if you started that habit early, even with a little bit of money, as you continue to make more money, then that habit still stays in place and you can increase that a little bit. The flip side is happening though. I think people are, they're coming out of college, they're getting a car, they're, a lifestyle, they're increasing their lifestyle because they're not a broke college student anymore. And then that just continues to spiral up instead of like any type of savings or investing for a lot of people. But yeah, my niece is a good example of this. She's in like her mid 20s and having me as an aunt is not easy. But But I talked to her about, you need to open a Roth IRA, you need to start investing in this monthly, because this is the time to do it right now. And so we set up an automatic payment for her. She's doing $50 a month. She's like, that's all I can do right now. She doesn't make that much. They're preparing for a wedding and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but starting on that, I was like, you're gonna look back in like 40 years and be like, thank you for helping me with that, because it is gonna, it's gonna make a difference.
And chances are she's gonna be like, I wish I listened to you even more and
Yep.
started with, sooner, or started with more than I thought I could afford, right? Like, I was just talking to someone about this. They were saying that they just started investing. They're like, yeah, I'm just doing like $25 a week. I'm like, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not only is it going weekly instead of monthly, but like it was funny because the way that they said it made it sound like they're almost like, I know it's not enough, but like I'm starting it. I'm like, no, that's the point of it, is like you are just starting. And I think it's okay if you're in that space where it's like, it's $50 a month or $25 a week, whatever it is, right? Like you had said, the point is that you're getting in the habit of doing it consistently, and recognizing that, hey, I'm going to do this thing today and I'm not going to see the payoff until much, much further down the road. Like, that's such an important concept to understand when it comes to your money, is like, whether it's paying off debt or building up your investments or building up your savings, whatever it is, for most of this stuff, it's you have to put in the work today, but you're not going to see an immediate return on that effort. For a lot of this, it's going to be years down the road or even decades down the road. And I think if you can get in that habit, like, that's the most important part, not necessarily how much you start with.
I know. That's why I wish there was an exit course for college
Yeah.
students, because this would be such an important piece to it. Like, at least start small, because then you build that
Yeah.
habit. It's really hard to then dial your lifestyle back and like
Hmm.
then start investing. We talk about this all the time. People
Yeah.
that wake up when they're 40 and they're just like, I make decent money, but I have nothing to show for it. It's because you've literally created your entire lifestyle around that and have not prioritized things that you've needed to do. So yeah, it's a tricky situation, but start early, even start small. I don't care what
Yeah.
it is, but just get the muscle built there.
100%. Should we move into the last one?
Sure.
Okay, so this last one is, I deserve this purchase. And honestly, like, this is the one, when I hear people say this, like, it always just like, what is that saying? Like, it grinds my gears, like, as cheesy as it sounds, like, I always hear it like, oh, I've been working so hard lately, like, I felt like I deserved it. And that's always followed by like a decision that I'm like, probably wasn't the best decision that you could have made with the money that you have. And I feel like I hear it all too often as a way to justify making a bad choice with their money. We're doing something that, if you didn't back it up with, oh, well, I just felt like I deserved it, you would recognize that it probably wasn't the right thing to do. I don't know. To me, and this might sound a little bit harsh, but I think this is like kind of what's at the core of it, is like, people feel like entitled to these things that, they'll put under the disguise of, oh, well, this is just self-care. Like, I'm taking care of myself for
Yeah.
working so hard. And I'm like, dude, life is about work, and
Yeah.
hopefully you can be someone who's fortunate enough to fall into a type of work that you enjoy, but at the end of the day, like, life is about work and sacrifices and things being hard. And
Yeah.
you just have to be working towards the things that actually matter. That way, those have meaning. You're not just doing hard things, or life sucks for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like whenever we say this, we always know it's not like a
Yeah.
good purchase.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this like recently, like I was like interviewing for a job and like I finished up like the loop, and so we went out to eat afterwards, and I was like, I'm gonna get a dessert because like I worked hard for this. And I was like,
Yeah.
it literally doesn't like that has nothing to do with like interviewing and stuff like that. But yeah, it is always like this entitlement sort of like, because I work this hard, I get to do this. But again, comes back full circle to the justification
Yeah.
of, just telling yourself that you deserve it because of XYZ. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's super interesting, like what people will talk themselves
Yeah.
into.
I've over the years of budgeting for years now, it's like, I've gotten good about not doing that with my money, but like,
Yeah.
with my health, it's like health and fitness, it's stuff that I'm, it's still like, for example, on Saturdays, like, I've been going running in the morning, and then I'll go to jujitsu right after, and then I'm just like toast, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm beat. I'm like, you know what? I deserve to go to McDonald's to get a McFrappy, and like, that is like my favorite dessert to get now. It's like, it's so good. But like, when I really think about it, it's like, why do I deserve to do something bad, right, for putting in all this good work over here? Like, if I want one, I want one, and I should just say that, but I shouldn't back that up with like, no, I deserve it because I put in this hard work, and so therefore I'm going to go do something that's counterproductive to that hard work that I just did.
Yeah. I feel like it's always food for me. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, like the frappe for
Yeah.
you. But yeah, I feel like these days, now that I'm debt free and
Hmm.
budgeting and stuff, I feel like it's easier to just like budget it in. And then it
Yeah.
doesn't really come off as like deserve this purchase. But I do really value like self-care and, taking
Hmm.
care of myself in that sense. And sure, I'll do whatever I want. I don't value like things like nails and stuff like that. It's just not me. But like
Hmm.
if again, like you said, like the health side of things, like I really like my CrossFit gym. So I spend a lot of money there each
Yeah.
month. You know what I mean? And that's stuff that I'm not going to, you know, like what's the right word? I'm not gonna like I don't know the right word, skimp on it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because that is what I value.
Yeah.
But
It's important. Yeah.
at this point, I'm not going into debt for anything that I feel like I deserve. It's more of like this is just how I'm creating my life, and I have the means to do so.
Yeah, 100%. Like saying that you deserve something, to me it's always like why? Like why do you deserve these things that aren't necessary to live your life, right? And if you are someone who wants to like buy things that you don't need, like that's totally fine. Like you said, put it in the budget.
Yeah,
And then it fitting in the budget and you taking care of your other responsibilities, cool. Then I can actually like then you actually have proof that I deserve this thing, right? Because I've worked hard, I've taken care of my financial responsibilities, my other responsibilities in life, and then there's extra money to go do this. Cool, like you've actually put in the work to get it. But I think a lot of people get stuck in like I'm just like beat or I'm tired or whatever it is, or like I've been working really hard and so therefore I'm going to make a counterproductive decision, which to me it's like, hey, like that's not the best choice, and you don't need to justify it by saying I deserve it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like I don't, other than like desserts.
Yeah.
I don't really say those things these days. If I do, it'd be something that like I did have the extra money for, but maybe had not planned to purchase. But it's not something that, I'm going into debt for or whatever.
100%. All right, that wraps up today's episode, but I guess just like one final note to leave on and kind of just reiterating what I said at the beginning. Like I think a lot of these things, when you look at them like in isolation, they feel like harmless or small, or like you're doing it because it makes you feel better or whatever it is. And that particular instance is never the issue, right? And it's always these small things compounded over hundreds or thousands of decisions. Like that's when it becomes the issue. But I think you got to recognize like, hey, these are the little things that I continue to do that put me in the bad spot. Like I got to start with the little things first. I got to start with the things that I do so often that they're no longer little things, because the result is having such a big impact. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's easy to tell yourself these kind of lies, especially when it comes to your money or your health, your fitness, whatever it is. But like the sooner you can say, you know what, I'm just using that as a cop out, the sooner you're going to recognize like, okay, this probably isn't the decision I want to be making.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just to quickly add there, like when you do find yourself saying these things, because you will, like even you and I, we deserve this.
Yeah.
I think it's important to like go deeper and be like, what's behind that? You know what I mean? Because you're going to find probably what the answer is. And it probably is not going to be to, purchase this thing or, whatever. So I think it's just important to like look a little bit deeper into it and maybe just think about the decision or the action you're about to take.
Absolutely. All right, that wraps it up. As always, if you enjoyed the episode or you found some value out of it, the best way you can help us grow is by subscribing and sharing this with a friend.
Yeah, and if you want to have your money question answered in the show, you can visit our website, justanothermoneypodcast.com, and click the Submit a Question button. Don't forget to join us for another episode of Just Another Money Podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.